Alright, let's fire it up. New thing that I want to start doing here, which is called the 2 hour review. So I played Baldur's Gate. I finally got my computer, a little extra hardware, souped up enough to play and stream and feel comfortable about it. So at the behest of my best friend, we decided we'd fire up a little Baldur's Gate 3. And I decided that when I'm going to start doing this for video games, that I'm also going to make a quick little review. Not when you're 100% in or 50% in, even far enough, a couple days to get through a good portion of the story and maybe get comfortable with some of the attributes. No, I want to do a 2 hour review. And the reason I want to do a 2 hour review is because I feel like that within 2 hours, you should be happy that you bought the game. Wanting to play it more, right? And so I figured I'd do a 2 hour review to talk about things like how easy is the game to get adapted to? What are the controls like? How does it feel? What are the cinematics? What's the storyline? Do you understand what's going on? And I hope to do this for a whole bunch of video games in the future. So we'll kick it off with Baldur's Gate 3. Of course, it's a D&D title, so I will give the warning that I'm a DM. And so, of course, some of my views will be tainted because I've played actually D&D before and, well, frequently and as running the game, which makes it harder to enjoy a game like this. Now, you might say, well, you're a huge D&D fan, so wouldn't you be incredibly excited about a game like this? And the answer is kind of. Because yes, it's exciting that they're putting out a D&D game, and yes, it's exciting that it's as multiverse and you can try and do as many things as you see on Twitter or Twitch, people trying. Cool stuff like stacking up boxes and jumping over walls, or an owl bear off the top rope. Yeah, that's all cool. But also, there's a limit to computers, and especially a computer trying to DM a D&D game. And it's something that I had a little bit of worry about, I guess I would say, because sometimes, even if it's not the best answer, if it's the coolest, it's a good idea for you to try it with your group. And that's something only a human DM can really take into account, right? And as DMs, we call it the rule of cool. So, what's an example I can think of? Well, I was in a game once, and somebody wanted to try to backflip off a cart onto the wing of a dragon, stab the wing of the dragon, and use that to hold himself and pull himself up. Sounds like a terrible idea, doesn't it? Sounds like something that you shouldn't even be able to try. And maybe in this game, I'm not able to try it. At least that's what I've found so far through my first 2 hours. That maybe there's a couple things that no matter how good my imagination is, I can't necessarily do on the screen. Just so you know, when I was DMing that, of course I let him try it. And of course he rolled a natural 20. So we then had to play out him, well, flying along the side of a dragon. Kind of crazy. But back to Baldur's Gate. Listen, it's hard to replicate D&D in a computer environment. So there are some things that I'm not going to like just right off the bat because I'm a DM and I'm used to playing a tabletop game, and that's not what this is. But I can tell you, as the first part of my 2 hour review, that I think they've done an excellent job in making a game that has a feel of D&D, even though we all know it's not going to be D&D. I want to start off with character creation. Now, this was one of my concerns. You can get a little bit in the weeds with D&D. There are a lot of options. You can do literally whatever you want. And your DM might let you do a little bit more or a little bit less based on whose table you're playing at or what campaign you're in. So the character creation part of Baldur's Gate I thought was going to be particularly difficult for the developers. Yeah, how dare you choose my ability points for me? Could they make it feel like you had enough options that it felt like D&D, fully customizable, but at the same time, not get too far into the weeds? I played other games like Pillars of Eternity. You get kind of bogged down in character creation. Same thing goes for like World of Warcraft, which I know they spent a lot of time trying to streamline in the later versions, but I played early on in the days where character creation, you spent all kinds of time looking up information about what tree you wanted your character to go down. You could spend hours doing that. And I thought they nailed it. They did a really good job of presenting you with enough options at the beginning of Baldur's Gate that you felt like it was your own customizable character. But they saved you from the slog of going through every little detail. Now, me as the DM, I started clicking around. What can I change? What adjustments can I make? But in actuality, you don't need to do that. Not only do they have pre-rolled characters in there that are supposedly very good, of course I customized mine, but they give you the option to just click things that you want and let the computer decide how to best use that character then. Things like allotting your attribute points and picking skills for you. If you don't know what you're doing, if you've never played D&D before, that can sound like a lot, and it can be a lot to do. You don't know what kinds of things are going to affect your rolls, and what kind of rolls you'll see the most often. So, if you don't know what kind of rolls are coming, you can't necessarily plan for that by making your character a specific way. They took care of this for you by automatically setting things like your attributes and skills once you've selected what you want to do. So you still get the customization of, I want to play a gnome, rogue,
yes.
And all of a sudden you click and you get your attributes already done for you based on what would be best for a character like that. I thought they did a really good job with that. Then when you get into gameplay, the cinematics obviously are beautiful. I'm glad that they took time and didn't just rush through things like the cinematics. The storyline matters. That's what D&D is about. It's important that you have a real plot, a real storyline with multiple hooks where your decisions matter. And that's how this game was marketed, that your decisions matter. And it felt like that when I got into the game. The cinematics introduce the storyline, but immediately, as soon as you're freed, the things that you decide to do can make a difference in how the game plays out. Love that for them. The next thing, death is real. So I died like 2 minutes into playing the game. 2 minutes into playing the game. We were in a Mind Flayer ship, and I started messing around and touching things. And all of a sudden, I started killing these little brain things. What happened to me? I died. And I think it's a great thing. One of the important things in D&D is you have to fear death. Now listen, not every DM plays this way. It's only maybe something that I feel. But let me tell you how important it is to fear death in your games. You can't make realistic decisions if you just feel like you're Superman and there's no way that you're ever gonna die. Oh no! Why did I die? I don't know. And the fact that no more than 2 minutes into the game was I sitting there wondering, well, what's going to happen if I smash this jar and kill this brain, and bang, I'm dead. I'm dead. Consequences for your actions. Now, of course, they give you some scrolls there you can bring people back to life and so on and so forth. And I think those kinds of things are good. But I think it also says, hey, listen, you only get a certain number of options or times that you can mess up here. Make sure you're careful with your decisions. And so I went into the game playing with my friend, and less than 2 minutes in, he's down a scroll of Revivify and brings me back to life. Maybe we should have just started the game over. But I love the fact that there's consequences for your actions. Even as you start to get through the beginning of the storyline, you're presented with a decision at the very beginning. There's another person in a pod. Do you free them, or do you just run out the door and save yourself? Now listen, there's lots of different ways you can make that decision, but I think it's important that not only can you make that decision, but it matters. Immediately you go into a battle after that. Immediately you try to fight people, you crash, you land on a beach, and the decision that you made just minutes ago is affecting how the gameplay works. Now, some things that I didn't necessarily love about it. There was a lack of creativity, I felt like, going through using my utility spells. Now, listen, I'm very early in the game. It's called the 2-hour review for a reason. So maybe I figure out better ways that I can use them going forward. This is actually one of the compliments I've heard from a lot of people playing Baldur's Gate, that they felt like these spells that they have, these utility spells, are so good that sometimes they overuse them and they don't take enough combat spells. But I'll tell you what I've found, and again, the problem is that I'm comparing it to the tabletop game, but the problem that I've found is that you're not able to do quite enough with them, at least not yet. Maybe that's something that changes as you get further into the game and the computer gives you a little bit more freedom to try things, but for now, it felt like I should take all combat spells and really kind of double down on making sure my character doesn't die, because you can die so quickly. Now, next thing that I don't love. You're in a Mind Flayer ship to start off with. Mind Flayers are like the third most badass creature on planet D&D. Yes, like dragon level. And you're there while a demon is fighting a Mind Flayer, and you just kind of waltz around them. Listen, I understand that they want you to have this sensation that this is D&D. It's not any other video game. But it just kind of felt like, of course we're going to get out of this. A little too easy. So I didn't necessarily love seeing the big bad guy at the very beginning. But of course, they have to set the plot line. I just think that a Mind Flayer would have just wiped out our sorry little butts on the ship as it was crashing, even whilst fighting a demon. I think he would have mopped the floor with us pretty quick. But I digress. Other problems I have with the game, the camera operation is not very intuitive. I understand that it's a turn-based game and it's a third-person game, and it makes it for a little bit different of game controls. But controlling the camera with the WASD keys and controlling the players with the clicks of the mouse, it got a little bit clunky to me, I'm not going to lie. I would have rathered controlling the players with the WASD keys and controlling the camera with the mouse. I feel like that's how it normally works, but maybe this is something that I just haven't played enough games to have experienced before. I do like the option to right-click on things and be able to interact with them. It offers you kind of free tutorial on how to and things that you can interact with and how you can interact with them, and I appreciate that. But I think if you would have made the mouse the movement of the camera, you could have simply made something like the E or the Q key your interaction key, and once the mouse is highlighting something, you hit E and you're good to go. So it felt a little bit clunky for me trying to figure out how to move around in the world. And you can see that in the video that I'm playing too. And then the final thing that I didn't like about it is I understand that they went through trying to make it an action bar as easy as they can make it for somebody who doesn't know D&D and is used to video games. But there are lots of things that you can do in D&D that you can't necessarily put on the action bar. And so they tried to make this intuitive by, like, if you click on something and say to do it, and it requires you to move, that it'll move your character for you, and then bang, all of a sudden it's opening the chest or what have you. But in D&D, the order of operations matters. And you don't always know the order of operations that you want to do right off the bat. And so when you're trying to do something, it's important that, I guess, the computer gives you a little bit of leeway to say, okay, I'll take 2 steps and then I'll do it. Because you might not be exactly 30 feet away from something, which is the standard distance that you need to cast a spell or something like that, right? 30 feet is your average movement speed. But once I move 5 feet up, I could be close enough to do something. And I can't remember what the specific moment was in the game, but I'll try to put the video up over me talking here. There was a moment where I needed to do something, and I needed to walk forward like 5 steps to do it, and I did it and then walked forward the 5 steps, and it was totally wasted. It was a totally useless moment for me. And I needed that in that moment. So in a turn-based game where there shouldn't necessarily be a consequence for me doing things out of order to start off with, I think that should more closely reflect the tabletop game, where somebody is like, okay, I want to fire my bow, and you're like, well, you're 190 feet away, move up 10 feet first. Okay, I move up 10 feet, then I fire my bow. Great, now you're doing it without a penalty. That, I think, is an important thing that maybe should be incorporated into the game, since it's turn-based anyway, right? Like, it's not like I'm taking away somebody's reaction or something like that because I'm allowing a different order of operations. I think that it makes it so it's more closely reflective to the tabletop game. I do just want to say I love the aesthetics of it. I love that they put a dice on there that you actually roll. I love that they try to roll through some of the things that don't matter as much as quickly as possible. I love that they show you your bonuses and how they're calculated. I love that the feel of the spells and everything is in there. You can go through and select, every little detail about what you want prepared and what you want to know and all that kind of stuff, and I think that's awesome. I really think they did a good job with making it try to feel like D&D as you're taking off, and it makes me want to play more. So at the end of this 2-hour review, I give it a play more vote, and that's exactly what you want, because, after 2 hours, especially spending $60, you should definitely want to play more. Alright, if you like Baldur's Gate, go ahead and put it in the comments. If you have anything that you don't like about Baldur's Gate, I'd love to hear other people's takes on it, especially if you've played D&D as a tabletop game. How do you feel about it? And I know there's been in the past some consternation about these video games for D&D not really being like D&D, so I'm interested to hear other people's takes. Put those down in the comments, and you can always follow me on Twitch, which is over here. Follow me on Twitch right here, and when you do follow me on Twitch, you can watch me play some more Baldur's Gate as we move into the future. So 2-hour review, thumbs up. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.